in life that grows up into families where they have been taught the Christian values. They've been taught life skills. They've been taught a life, taught things that will help them live a successful life. But as you begin to look over the course of many people's lives, you will see that their lives have taken on different directions. Some lives have taken on a life for the better. Some lives turned out for the worse. And you will ask yourself, how is it that people that grew up in their household was taught the same Christian values, and some had life turned out for the better, and some life turned out for the worse? So that's a question that you wonder. You say, well, how is this? And the reason that this happens is, because some chose to obey what they was taught. Some chose not to obey what they was taught. So because they chose not to obey the teachings that they was taught, their life take a turn for the worse. Those that chose to obey, their life turned out for the better. In a similar situation, Jesus also gives us teachings. He gives us teachings that will help us to have life for the better if we choose to obey it, or we could choose to have life that may turn out for the worse if we choose not to obey. Jesus made this clear in the words that he said shortly after he concluded his Sermon on the Mount. And he said these words in Matthew the 7th chapter, verses 24 through 27. He says, "Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, not for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." So we see here that Jesus began to explain to us, he gave us two illustrations of two outcomes of a person that hears his word and obeys his word. Then he gives us another illustration of those that hears his word and do not obey his word. Now, the one that hears his word and obeys his word, Jesus said that he likened him to a wise builder. And what a wise builder is, a wise builder builds his life on the teachings of Jesus Christ. When a wise builder builds his life on the teachings of Jesus Christ, it provides stabilities for his life. We know that it provides stability for his life because Jesus says clearly here, he says, "I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock." A rock is symbolizing something that is stable. So in our lives sometimes we have difficulties, we have hardships. And in our life, to be able to overcome those difficulties and hardships, we're going to need something that stabilizes us. To stabilize us is the only thing that will stabilize us is the Word of God. The Word of God or the teachings of Jesus Christ. We need his teachings to stabilize us because a lot of the things that we go through affects our emotional well-being. We deal with bouts of depression. We deal with bouts of loneliness. Sometimes we deal with anger. How can we overcome those different things that we go through? The bouts of depression, the bouts of the times that we deal with loneliness, the times we deal with anger. Only way we can overcome those things is through the teachings of Jesus Christ. That's how we overcome those things. That's what gives us our stability. Now, contrasting the illustration of the outcome of hearing Jesus' word and obeying his word is another illustration Jesus says. He says about his illustration, he tells us how one can hear his word and not obey his word. Now, Jesus likened this person here of not obeying his word to a foolish builder. A foolish builder, he builds his life on things that's unstable. So his life is going to be unstable because he did not build his life on the teachings of Jesus Christ. So the same problems that the wise builder go through, or the person, all of us go through the same thing, whether we are believers or unbelievers. We go through the same difficulties, the same hardships, the same emotional issues. But the difference between the wise builder is that he has stability. The one that does not build his life on the teachings of Jesus Christ has instability. And because he has the instability, that person will succumb to depression. That person will succumb to loneliness. That person will succumb to the bouts of anger. So it's important for us, even as Christians, that we make sure that we are wise builders. Now, I must admit, in my own experience, I have had failures in my own life. Not only failures, I have also had victories. When I look over my life and look at the times that I had failures, I can only trace it back to the point where Jesus said, how did I build my life? How am I building my life? And when I'm building my life without the word of God or without the teachings of Christ, I failed. But when I built my life according to Jesus' teachings, I had victory. So the question that comes, that we all must ask ourselves, how will we build our house? Will we build our house according to the ways of the foolish, or will we build our house according to the ways of the wise? We know the foolish, he built his house on the sand, instability. The wise built his house on a rock, stability. Instability or stability? You make the choice. I'll say again, how will you build your house? Will you build your house according to the foolish, or will you build your house as the wise person? The wise person built his house on the rock. Foolish person built his house on the sand. And because he built his house on the rock, he was able to overcome all of the trials, all of the circumstances, all of the challenges that life brings.